It's been 5 years since Pitch Perfect 3 released, and it still bothers me how they sold the movie to audiences. It all stemmed from fan reactions to 2 characters in the first film. There was such excitement for them that the filmmakers couldn't help but rub their hands together at the prospect of what this could mean for the franchise. But not in terms of these characters and their place as potential LGBT icons. Instead, it was more in terms of what the studio could do to manipulate this audience into seeing their films. Audiences tend to be a little back and forth on deciding if they're okay with LGBT people existing. Sometimes it's good and profitable for the media to be accepting of the LGBT community, and sometimes it's not worth the controversy to actually treat them like real people. However, a lot of companies struggle with this dilemma because the LGBT community and their allies have money, and those companies would really like that money. So, how can they meet in the middle? Well, that's where queerbaiting comes in. What is queerbaiting? Put simply, queerbaiting is when a TV show or movie hints at having LGBT characters, usually in marketing the product beforehand, in order to increase viewership with little to no actual payoff to this suggestion. There also may be queerbaiting within the story of the show itself, in order to get viewers to stick around to see what happens next. Queerbaiting is usually directed at the LGBT community, since there is limited LGBT representation in media. So, any chance to see themselves represented in popular media is very welcome, especially if it is honest and respectful. Additionally, sometimes people find same-sex coupling hot, even if some of those people don't really like LGBT people. Typically, this consists of audience members who want to see hot girls make out, but not actually be interested in each other romantically. Let's not get those messy feelings involved. Instead, focus that romantic energy on heterosexual relationships with men, ladies. And keep that sexy making out for parties or public settings where the men can enjoy it.
Don't freak out, just trust me.
These characters are not LGBT. This moment is never referenced again, and is even called out in the episode immediately after, as if this excuses the obvious queerbaiting.
Check your sell-by date, ladies. Faux lesbian kissing hasn't been taboo since 1994.
While the show tries to lampshade its own attempt at a ratings boost for the first episode of the series, the creators knew exactly what they were doing when they filmed that scene. Trying to excite audiences about what else this new, edgy series would get up to. Queerbaiting is heavily criticised within the LGBT community because it is all about viewership and shock factor, as opposed to creating the meaningful, lasting relationships between characters that heterosexual characters get most of the time. It also indicates that LGBT relationships are edgy and abnormal, and therefore these relationships do not have any proper substance or should be taken seriously. How Pitch Perfect queerbaits. The beginnings. In the midst of Glee-centric hype and a movement for self-acceptance and inclusivity, Pitch Perfect was released in 2012. Pitch Perfect was a comedy musical following a mix of college students singing in a cappella competitions, focusing on the all-female a cappella group, the Bard and Bellas. The main character, Becca, joins them somewhat reluctantly to give herself an edge for her future career. Like Glee, the setting introduced a mix of diverse characters, and the character known as, Fat Amy, even says,
"So there's like 10 of us. That means one of us is probably a lesbian."
Think? Which one do you think it is?
My money is on Black Beauty.
So, when I drink too much tonight, can I count on you to hold my hair back if I puke?
Don't tell her I said that.
Well, she wasn't wrong. Although the script meant someone else in the group, the film unintentionally depicted 2 characters as potentially queer, something marketing would really lean into later. Step forward, Big Chloe.
What on earth is Beck Chloe? Chloe.
What is Chloe?
Yeah, it's well, I didn't really know until very recently as well. It's I guess, you know, these people who enjoy films ship people, which is basically it's like a relationship. They formulate a relationship that they want to happen, and so this is Becca, Anna Kendrick, her character and my character, if we actually were together.
Now, I do think this pseudo-romance flirtation is something audiences assumed independently of the film, and was not the film's intention. This was later confirmed by the writer of the Pitch Perfect movies, Kay Cannon. However, there is good reason why this would-be relationship gained traction amongst fans. Let us be reminded of the intimate and awkward way Becca and Chloe meet. Chloe overhears Becca singing and is very forward on insisting Becca joins the a cappella group, the Barton Bellas. It's a strange introduction, mostly played for laughs, but the actress's chemistry carries the scene. As we know very little about these characters so far, the little whisper in the back of some head starts to ask, is this a weird meet-cute for a couple?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty confident about all this. You should be. Oh.
It doesn't help that their next one-on-one encounter has this little interaction.
Hi.
Oh.
I'm so glad that I met you. I think that we're gonna be really fast friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you saw me naked, so.
But then the guy Becca met earlier, Jesse, is back, and it's clear this film would rather have its leading protagonist with a man than a woman. Plus, Chloe is seen with a guy both in the shower scene and Aka initiation night, so okay, fine. Disappointing, but I get it. Hollywood's not there yet. And maybe the characters aren't either. In 2015, Brittany Snow, who played Chloe, spoke about the shower scene in an interview with Out magazine, confirming the scene was not implying anything romantic. We never set out to make her anything. It was never supposed to be bisexual or lesbian. I think she was one of those girls who love everyone, but people can take that however they want it. There was still a lot of buzz around this film and a possible future relationship between the two. I was on Tumblr in those days, and while Tumblr users tended to ship everyone and their brother together, the fandom went crazy for Becca and Chloe. It clearly had a strong fan base. Back to Amy suggesting one of the group is gay and what the script wanted you to think. Their one out queer character, Cynthia Rose, is characterized in a predatory way for the majority of the film, feeling up and staring at the promiscuous character and taking any opportunity to perv on the girls. In fact, her sexuality and Fat Amy speculating on it is a punchline.
Well, for the last 2 years, I've had a serious gambling problem.
What? What?
It started when I broke up with my girlfriend. Well, there it is.
So, Pitch Perfect wasn't exactly kind to its existing queer characters, making them the butt of the joke and reinforcing stereotypes about gay people being predatory. This wasn't the best setup for the filmmakers taking queer relationships seriously in the future, but the fans held out hope for the franchise. Pitch Perfect 2 was announced, and fans were excited. Maybe now that they've safely profited off of the first film, the franchise could take LGBT representation more seriously in the next one? Maybe the audience could even see something more concretely queer from Becca or Chloe, since fans have made their enthusiasm for this coupling pretty well known. And the actresses were even acknowledging this fandom. The sequels get worse. In Pitch Perfect 2, the Barton Bellas are disqualified from their position as national champions when Amy accidentally exposes herself on stage while performing. The film follows them trying to get reinstated and their impending graduation from college. There are moments in the film that make it obvious the filmmakers are aware of fans' excitement around the possibility of the central character Becca being queer. And it's this acknowledgement that starts to make me see queerbaiting red flags. When interacting with the lead female singer of a rival a cappella group, Becca says,
"You are physically flawless.
Thank you.
But it doesn't mean I like you."
And now I really must go rest my neck. It is sore from looking down on you.
Okay, Just because you are making me very sexually confused does not mean that you are intimidating.
Becca complimenting her and being flustered around this character continues throughout the film, even while Commissar insults her. Again, these interactions are played for laughs, and there is no actual payoff to Becca's sexual confusion towards a woman. When it comes to Becca interacting with Chloe, there is far more content in this film. They have a great friendship, and Anna Kendrick and Brittany Snow continue to have fantastic chemistry together. But the filmmakers can't help themselves, and they throw in another tease to the fans of this pairing during a camping scene.
You know, Becca, we're very close, but I feel like this retreat is really going to let us discover everything about each other. Is that right? You know, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't do enough experimenting in college. You're so weird. Thanks.
Naturally, with the proximity of the characters and the hushed tones, it's incredibly clear what Chloe is propositioning to Becca. But alas, Becca turns away. The filmmakers dangled that carrot on a stick, Chloe literally suggesting to Becca that they act on their undeniable sexual chemistry, and then snatched it away. Chloe then starts singing Torn, a song about emotional damage from a bad breakup. Not long after, Becca and Chloe get into an argument and Amy tries to break it up, saying,
Listen, I don't want you guys to fight. You're Becca and Chloe. Together you're blowy, and everyone loves a good glowy.
It may be another punchline, but the writer literally adds a reference to the woman's ship name into the script, which feels like a shout out to the fans, especially following the experimenting in college scene. This all feels like it's leading up to something, but it never does. Becca continues to date her boyfriend Jesse, and these hints and suggestions are nothing more than teasing jokes. Anna Kendrick and Brittany Snow even won a Teen Choice Award for their chemistry after Pitch Perfect 2, to which Anna tweeted her celebration hashtagging "But Chloe is real" with a lips emoji. There is clear support from Kendrick for this ship, or at the very least she's happy to promote it for marketing reasons, but we'll get more into that later. The film's director Elizabeth Banks also tweeted her support. Regarding the actual out character Cynthia Rose, she returns to the film as a now engaged woman, but we never hear the name or details of her to-be wife, and she continues to feel up women on the camping trip despite her relationship status.
You touching my goodies?
Yes.
The predatory lesbian trope continues. So maybe fans are reading too much into a close female friendship. It could just be that, after all. Maybe the filmmakers never intended for its leads to be LGBT or hinted at, and would balk at the accusation of queerbaiting. Or will argue that it's just a comedy. Lighten up. We are 2 films down. Becca has been in a long-time relationship with Jesse. I guess it's just not meant to be. And then the marketing campaign happened. The filmmakers knew. Hype for a relationship increased, and this marketing seemed to confirm Becca and Chloe were headed for a real romantic plotline in the 3rd and possibly final installment of the Pitch Perfect series. Surely the studio wouldn't be this blatantly queerbaiting. That would just be cruel and extremely obvious that they want butts in seats who hope to see Becca and Chloe become official. Well, blatant they were. And the studio even went one step further by having the actresses create a special promo for Snapchat.
Swipe up for more.
Maybe it's me, but Anna Kendrick looks pretty uncomfortable at the end of that promo. Maybe she wasn't a fan of the very obvious queerbaiting and sexualization of herself and Brittany Snow to promote a film that did not include anything romantic between the characters. Yep, in fact, this film ended up having the least queer content of all 3 of the films. Pitch Perfect 3 starts by letting us know Becca is now single. But don't worry, this is just so we can try to give her another male love interest in music producer Theo. Unfortunately for the filmmakers, Anna Kendrick ended up vetoing this love interest storyline and a subsequent kiss, because she found the power imbalance of him being her potential boss problematic. So they stay mainly platonic. However, for the first time in the series, Chloe is given her own love interest. A completely bland, shoehorned-in soldier named Chicago. It feels intentional on the part of the filmmakers to ground Chloe as straight by having the final movie focus on her heterosexual romance with this random bland man. Her possible bisexual tendencies were just playful banter, and now it's time for her to get serious. And what's better than the epitome of manliness in a US Army soldier with Hollywood good looks? There is still a tiny bit of queerbaiting in the film itself, of course. The marketing used that moment of Chloe grabbing Becca by the chest and holding on a bit too long in its queerbaiting promos, so some content was needed. Plus more throwaway lines for laughs.
Girls, we have separate rooms. We don't have to sleep on top of each other anymore.
What?
Not sexually. There was that one time.
Behind the scenes. So, the studio was very aware of the fandom around Chloe and how that excitement sold tickets and increased popularity for the franchise. By queerbaiting, the studio could have their cake and eat it. By promoting their film as LGBT inclusive, but not actually having to walk that controversial road with some audiences by delivering on that promise. I don't think this intention to deceive was shared by the cast. Anna Kendrick and Brittany Snow mentioned Chloe positively in interviews multiple times.
Huge fan base surrounding Becca and Chloe as a couple.
I love it.
Right.
I love it.
What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I couldn't be more excited about it. It's, in the first movie, when we were doing the scenes, I was like, this is entering, Sketchy Town, and I love it. That's where I live. That's my home, is in Sketchy Town.
Anna even mentioned there were opportunities for Chloe to be realised in Pitch Perfect 2.
Weird combination in the second one where there's moments where you're like, oh, come on, that was a perfect opportunity for a Chloe moment. Yeah.
I believe Kendrick was a fan of the Chloe ship and wanted it to become a reality. This becomes clear when news of a kiss between the two was sneakily filmed on the set of Pitch Perfect 3.
But they filmed a kiss. And we're not going to see it. The studio didn't want to put it in the finished movie, but I'm hoping it'll be on the DVD.
I can't believe they filmed it.
Yeah, we filmed it. It was on the last day.
Oh my god.
Kendrick wanted to film it.
Kendrick wanted to film it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the studio did not include this kiss in the film or on the DVD extras. It was lost to the cosmos, perhaps just another marketing gimmick in queerbaiting. It became a rumour, a myth, a legend. And then it was leaked online in December 2020. Excuse the quality.
Great.
I gotta go show this guy how it's done.
Oh, I always knew.
I think it's cute. Kendrick and Snow wanted to give Chloe fans a little something after all of the teasing and queerbaiting, and even though the snippet took a while to see the light of day, it's a cute gesture, even if it is about 3.5 pixels. Plus, you can see Kendrick and Snow really going for that kiss. It's also interesting to note that Kendrick mentions in an interview with Collider that the editing of Pitch Perfect 2 actually lent further into the queerbaiting.
Haley and I filmed this perfectly normal scene, and they cut it together with these lingering looks, and I was like, why does it look like I want to bone this chick? First of all, I've already got my potential lesbian storyline with Chloe.
Coupled with the existing Chloe moments, Becca feeling sexually frustrated by her female rival, and now this flirtatious editing, it was extremely intentional on behalf of the editors and the filmmakers to hint Becca might be queer and therefore attract a larger audience without any actual payoff. Within the film, they keep the moments sparse and subtle enough to allow plausible deniability for the general audience, while still feeding into the excitement and hope of LGBT-seeking audiences. And ultimately, this queerbaiting did pay off for the filmmakers. Directly into their pockets. In conclusion, I find it cruel when studios queerbait because there is limited representation of the LGBT community on television and film, and the promise of more is so desired. Although this has fortunately improved in recent years, back in 2018, when Pitch Perfect 3 was released, there was even less mainstream LGBT representation. So to actively promote that a film is delivering on a relationship that has been relentlessly teased for so long, and then firmly shutting it down is just unnecessarily mean-spirited. It tells the audience that queer relationships are meant to remain a fantasy and not meant to be endgame for the characters. In fact, queer relationships are best used as a marketing ploy in the eyes of the studios. It's also plain old false advertising, and that deception is not okay. I was honestly shocked at how blatantly Universal Pictures tried to deceive audiences by baiting them into thinking Chloe was actually going to happen in Pitch Perfect 3. And on reflection, this was a clear ploy to improve profits after the film initially received negative reviews from critics. Queerbaiting is not okay. At the very least, it's immature and dishonest. Be honest about the values you have and what you intend to represent in your film, instead of trying to please both sides of an extremist coin of opinions. Because in the end, you'll please no one. So, what queerbaiting moments did I miss in the series? Do you agree that Pitch Perfect and its marketing queerbaited? Did you actually want to see more of the Chloe ship? And in general, what are the most offensive uses of queerbaiting you've seen?